Today we're going to talk about how to draw doors in plan. First of all, we have to understand what it is we're drawing. One of my professors used to tell me when I was first in architecture school that every single line on our drawing represents something, and I'd better know what it represents. And so we're going to walk through what every line in a door symbol that we draw in plan represents. Now then, first of all, this is a door. It happens to be my front door, but it's a door. Okay, plain old door. Let's get a little bit of terminology out of the way first, because that way we can understand what's going on. The panel itself is the door. The frame around it. This is actually trim that covers the actual physical frame that the door is in. Sometimes they're the same thing, sometimes they're not. Mine's 100 years old, so it is. Okay, so we have a door and we have a frame. This side over here where the doorknob is what we call the strike side. Okay, and that's because the piece of hardware inside the door hits on the metal plate over here that's called the strike. So this is the strike side of the door. And this is where all your locks and chains and all that stuff always are, because this is the side the door opens on. The other side is called the hinge side, and this is where the door actually connects to the frame. Okay, you can see the frame sticking out past the trim right here. Okay, so that's the other side of the frame. We're drawing a door swing in plan. What we're really drawing is this. We're drawing an open door. There are two standard conventions for drawing doors in plan. Right now we're drawing 90-degree doors. In construction, those usually signify new doors. We usually draw existing ones at a 45-degree angle. But what we are drawing is we're drawing the door. That's the line, which I usually draw as a rectangle to represent the thickness of the door. And then we draw an arc, which signifies the way that the door travels through the space so that we understand how not to have objects in front of the door. Okay? It shows you how the clear distance for the door is from this face to this face of the jamb. Okay? So this side piece of the frame is called the jamb. The top piece is called the head. The bottom piece, this piece down here that happens to be marble on mine, that's called the sill. Here you can see the hinge side of the door and how it's mounted on the door. Okay, so now then, let's open up AutoCAD and let's talk about what that looks like in plan. Okay, when we're drawing a door in plan, we have the opening. And in most plans, because we're drawing them to be seen at 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch, we're really going to worry about those in even inches or maybe half-inch increments. But most of the time, doors are in even increments. Okay, I'm going to see how wide this opening that I have is here. Okay, so most exterior doors these days are 3-foot doors. And that opening is 3 feet wide. Okay, so when you're drawing the plan, you're drawing first the opening, which is the same width as the nominal width of the door, so call it 3 feet. Okay, and then you have the door itself, which is going to be 3 feet, and a kind of a standard thickness for a door is 1 3/4 inches thick. So I'm going to draw this at 1.75, comma 36. So that's a 36-inch door that is 1 3/4 inches wide or thick. Okay, so now I have my door and I have the opening. Where does the door mount in the opening? Okay, for a standard door that uses hinges, I'm going to go back to my photographs here. Notice that the hinge is mounted right on the very edge. And if you really look at it, when you open the door, this inside face of the door is going to be aligned with the edge of the jamb. Okay? So, typically when we're drawing a door in plan, because we're drawing to the nearest inch, okay, depending on scale, we will put the very corner of our door right at the very corner of the opening, like that. Okay, So now how do we draw the swing? Usually the way I draw the swing is to draw an arc. Oops, that's a circle. Okay, so I draw an arc. I make the start point of the arc right here. I define the center of the arc next, which is going to be where my hinge is. And then I draw the end point of the arc next. And then I have the perfect arc. Okay? Now then, that's for just a normal hinged door. Okay. Now, the way that we draw a door on a set of drawings, on a plan, tells us how the door is mounted and how the hardware works. Okay? So I'm going to show you a picture of another door that I have in my house. Okay, that's my front door. You can see how, this is the door. Now, this door is a little bit different. This is a double acting door. Okay? And you'll notice that instead of having a hinge on this side, it's got a pivot right here. Okay. So if I was going to draw this door in plan, it would not look like this. It would instead, I'm going to draw myself a wall to draw my door into. Oops, undo. Okay. I'm going to trim this, this out here so that's cleaner. Okay. I'm going to draw a line from here. Oh, come on. And I'm going to offset it 18 inches to each side so I have a 3-foot opening. Choosing lines to trim with, I'm going to trim this one here. I'm going to trim this one here. And I'm going to trim this one here. And then I'm going to erase this one. Okay, so I'm going to copy my door from down here. But because this time I'm drawing a pivoting door, I'm going to put it in a little bit differently. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to set my door here, and I'm going to set it at the midpoint of the jamb. This line represents the jamb on one side. On the hinge side, this side is on the strike side. Now let's go back out and look at my pivoting door. Okay, so my pivoting door is set in about 2.5 inches from the jamb. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to offset this line two and a half inches, and I'm going to move my door from the midpoint over, whoops, selecting the last thing that I moved to move again. Okay. Now and then I'm going to move this down, because you can see in the photograph the edge of the door is pretty much aligned with the edge of the frame. When I'm doing a pivoting door, a lot of times I will actually draw a little X right here. Using the same distances for my offset. Now I'm going to choose lines to trim to, and then I'm going to trim these middle lines because they're the only ones I'm keeping. And there you can see where the pivot is. Okay. So this one, we're going to move our arc over just a little bit. Get it to line up because the door is still 3 feet. But it's actually pivoting around a different spot. So we're going to scoot the swing in because the swing doesn't swing into the wall there. We're going to trim our arc. Okay, now remember I said this was a double acting door? That means that it swings both ways. How do we represent that? Well, some people will actually just flip this door so that you have it looking something like that. Okay, and then that represents the double acting door. The other thing that people will do is they will dash this door, the secondary way that it swings. Okay, so that just depends on what your office standard is. The big point here is, okay, each thing that we draw in a door represents something very important. In a normal door, you have the slab, you have the hinge where it meets the jamb, you have the line that represents the swing that goes down to the strike side. So you just need to be mindful that, okay, these are the checkpoints. This width right here is the same as the length of the door, that the radius of the arc is the same as the length of the door, and that it is mounted usually on this point here, the inside face, where it's swinging to. Sometimes that's a little different, but in general, that's how we draw them. For other doors, go take a look at what you've got around the house or around the office in order to understand what you need to draw. Every line represents something, and one of the interesting and fun things about being a designer, an environmental designer, is that we have to be curious about blasé things that other people don't ever think about. So go for it and have fun.